Okay. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. In person here in the Alfred University Holmes Auditorium, but also online via Zoom. Hello, everyone online. I'm Miles Calvert, Director of the IEA. We're going to hear more about the IEA shortly. I wear a second hat as President of SGCI, the Southern Graphics Council International, who are co-hosts this evening for this event. As a representative of the board, we are beyond excited to welcome Althea Murphy-Price for her artist talk tonight, as well as to create an edition in the IEA during this 2-week residency. This is but one of 2 co-hosted events and talks this semester. You're all encouraged to join us for Erica Walker's residency, which will be on Wednesday, March 25th. Same situation, same place. This programming is printmaking specific, but also an opportunity for the masses to engage with contemporary working artists who are clear leaders in their field. I encourage all of you to attend the SGCI conference in October in 2027 in Pittsburgh. You'll find the conference details and all open calls for exchange portfolios, international excursions, and other opportunities on the SGCI website. A special thank you to the foundation students who are here tonight. This isn't a regular scheduled program, so we're very excited that you're here. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass the moderation of the evening on now to Aurora and Veronica, apologies, 2 undergraduate students participating in the Business of Art class. Thank you very much and enjoy the evening.
Good evening and welcome everybody. My name is Veronica and thank you all for joining us at this event organized by the Institute for Electronic Arts. We are part of the School of Art and Design at Alfred University. The IEA is dedicated to supporting contemporary artists through its primary focus on residency programs. These residencies provide artists with the opportunity to engage in vital research using electronic media, new technologies, print media, and engage in vital research within the fine arts disciplines while also benefiting local, regional, and global communities. In addition to residencies, the IEA also supports evolving electronic studio research labs, hosts national and international conferences, and encourages projects in experimental media, prints, and publications. IEA residencies and public engagement are thanks to the Shine Joseph Endowment and the New York State Council for the Arts. You can learn about the IEA through our website or on social media pages. This talk is being moderated by myself and by my co-host, Aurora. We are students at Alfred University participating in the Business of Arts class, and I'm passing the mic now to Aurora, who will introduce our artist today.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to start off with Althea's art misstatement from her representing gallery, the Sheet Cake Gallery. I question the truth behind desire for fascination and the impulse of attraction in human perception. By addressing deception and ornamentation, I acknowledge the role of embellishment in feminine and racial identities to magnify the typically overlooked individual, making them a rare and treasured specimen. Although preserved and celebrated in the eyes of their onlookers, they are not protected. Althea Murphy-Price received her BA in Fine Art from Spelman College, her MA in Printmaking and Painting from Purdue University, and her MFA from the Tyler School of Art at Temple University. Her work has been exhibited widely throughout the country and internationally, including Spain, China, Japan, Italy, and Sweden. She is included in multiple public collections such as the Whitney Museum of Public Art, or American Art, Knoxville Museum of Art, and the Huntsville Museum of Art. Murphy-Price now lives and works in Knoxville, Tennessee, where she is a professor at the University of Tennessee. She will be working in residency with the IEA at Alfred University from February 2nd to the 15th. You can find her on her website at altheamurphyprice.com or on Instagram at altheamurphyprice.
This artist talk will be roughly 45 minutes, and we will have time at the end for a Q&A session to answer any questions our audiences may have. Please use the chat feature if you are joining us via Zoom. We also have an in-person audience today, and thank you to everyone who is joining us, and thank you to Althea for your time this evening.
Veronica and Aurora, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. Um, it's been such an honor to be here as an IEA resident. I have long admired this residency, so it's really kind of a dream come true to be here and to have so many resources at my fingertips. It's been a beautiful challenge so far. So I've been really just honored. Thank you, Miles Calvert. It's been wonderful to also see Will Contino here, is running the printmaking area and media area. Yeah, it's just been wonderful. I have a lot of, I'm gonna make an adjustment. Is that okay? Can you hear me okay? Okay, it's not vibrating in my ear. I have a lot of slides. I like to share a lot of maybe process-oriented conversation. But I thought I would begin by sharing a lot of my most recent work. I would describe myself as an artist working within this expanded field of print media. And my practice is one that's really largely, it's driven by a dialogue I am interested in creating between both materials and surface. I heavily rely on symbolism in my work, and I believe that symbolism for me allows me to create imagery that can talk or speak to my own personal life, my cultural heritage as a Black person, my identity as a woman. And in general, printmaking to me, it's a physical action. It's a physical medium, and one that is full of evolving metaphors that I use throughout all of my career and throughout all of my creative exploration in print media. So to start, I forgot. I was to do something first. Excuse me. Hopefully for our viewers online, that's okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. I was just recently visiting some family, and a number of my relatives are in Shreveport, Louisiana. And this is just last week, I uncovered, I was exposed to this photograph, and this is a photograph of my grandfather in his barbershop on Pierre Avenue in Shreveport. And this was taken around 1955. He was a barber. He was also a tailor. You can see he has that like visor there. I can remember him wearing this like green visor, which he would use to kind of keep the glare off as he worked. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, there's a like series of racks and clothing is like that he would do his tailoring. He is just one example of also then many other women in my family whose their craftsmanship, their style, their presence has had significant impact on me. I look at this photo now and I realize how much of my own memories have been cemented and then influenced by this lineage, by my family, and have found visualization in my own creative voice. And so I just wanted to start off with this photo in a format, in a way to pay homage to those members of my family whom didn't necessarily have the same privilege that I have had to speak, to be able to explore creatively, and whom I believe that if they had had maybe some of the same opportunities, they may have become artists too. This is, so starting off with some kind of most recent work, this is an exhibition that I had in Knoxville, Tennessee, in one of my favorite galleries. And always a place where I kind of try something new. So this is relatively very new work. And it's a it's a good example and opportunity for me to talk about the symbolism that I'm referring to. You can see one of my photographic pieces next to the window there, and you can see this blue 3D printed piece also on the wall. This was an exhibition that I had with a Chicago artist, Mia Congo. But this piece here is I think of it as a display rack. And on the rack, there is a fly swatter, a symbol for me of discipline, of towing the line, of staying in line, a frequent tool or object that I remember my my grandmother using. Some of you will know kind of what I mean by that. Some of you might not. There's an abacus in here. There's my lost set of keys that I'm always trying to find, hanging at the bottom. The abacus is also similar to like the child's toy as well, as you can see there. And then there's also this corsage, an item of craft and of fashion that I think of when I think of some of the elders also in my family and what they would wear on regular occasion to both decorate themselves and an expression of their own making. This is another piece. This one's entitled First Impressions. It's a series of ribbons, various forms of ribbons used for decoration, for grooming, maybe to be represented as surprise or in the service of surprise. Also, one might think of as the unclaimed award. So this work is all 3D printed. And this is something that I've been in pursuit of doing since for the last 5 years or so, or maybe a little bit longer. And it is, it's been an exciting avenue for me, both as a continued expanded media to print, as an expression of and the role of fabrication, and also this great bridging for me between two subjects that I love thinking about, which is both play of the two-dimensional and the three-dimensional. So I think of 3D printing as existing somewhere in between those dimensions. Always in line with my work when I'm working in print, I'm working two-dimensionally, and then I'm working three-dimensionally. I am someone who has always pretty much worked in two-dimension, but I've always thought in three-dimension. And so my printed work tries to express that as well. This is a piece called Bearings, and it's all printed in one color ink. My printmaker is there, but there are several different types of surfaces. So there's a gloss-like surface, there's a dimensional-like surface, and there's this matte surface. And so I'm interested in exploring those materials, using materials to create dimension and conversation, and again, exploring kind of this, the dimensionality of print. This is another recent print that I created, and this just about like, I guess this time last year. And it is and I'll talk more about more of these prints here too, but it has a lot of other surface qualities as well, right? So there's a color and there's also this shine or gloss. I've started using embossment powders on my prints. You can see the brush there, and it's like dusting it over the ink. And then I often use heat to melt this powder onto the ink, and it creates this raised and also gloss surface. So this has been an exciting new way of working. So to talk about an influence, some of my favorite prints are the prints of David Hammond. And he has been maybe kind of one of my first exposures to contemporary art making and seeing print also manifested in a way that both joins material, process, and the topic of object. And so in a lot of ways, what he has done in his prints, which these are body prints, which I'll explain, is a lot of what I seek to do in my own work. In this series of prints, he would use his body, cover it with an oil-like surface, and create impressions onto the paper. So there's this action of both material performance and the use of print and the use of impression as metaphor. And these are just some beautiful works that I just continue to admire and push me to think about what is the meaning behind or the message behind the making. So this are some other recent work. This is entitled XYZ axis. I'm using in this print an image that is taken from the heating. Actually, this is the wire frame of a hair roller, right? Of hair rollers. And I've been using this kind of dimensional frames like that in this work. It also has this gloss-like finish, and then it's also printed, it's screen printed in multiple layers to create dimension. So the horizontal and vertical that you see here is raised and lifted off the page. I'm choosing, this is another. I am choosing to work in these parameters of this grid in this recent work. But I'm also thinking about the ability to look through and beyond that grid as well. So it as a kind of a foothold or a grounding mechanism to this endless space. This piece here, this is called After Party. It is, it's difficult to see and hear because the colors are so minimal, but there's this white layer printed in ink, and then there's this gloss layer or gloss square like window that intersects all of the imagery. And one can look through it and also see its subtle surface impression on top. Well, this is a series called Viewfinder, and I have 3 of these different prints. These are screen printed. They are printed in a metallic silver. These represent the heating grates or heating coverings on like heating elements like hair blow dryer, right? Or like heating floor grate, that sort of thing. So I'm using the patterns of those, and they're printed in this metallic to both reference the object, right? To reference the object, but then also create reflection. In this one, which is Viewfinder and mirrors. Okay, so to go back a little bit and talk about some earlier work. This is my most recent work. There are 3 ways that I find my work continues to evolve around, and that is both in the topic of like an experimentation, performative practice, and then also the topic of my own inspirations that involve culture and also societal implications and self-perception. So first to start, I want to go way back. This is some of the work that I created while I was in graduate school. When I studied in graduate school at Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia, and it was at Tyler, I had a lot of wonderful faculty members, but I was really encouraged to experiment there. And one of the first things I experimented with was using store-bought hair and finding different ways to print on it. And so screen printing was kind of new for me. And I went to town doing finding different ways to create impressions using hair. This is a swatch of hair. On that swatch of hair, I've printed the word lie. It's a blonde swatch of hair. And I was thinking about I was thinking about dyes and dyeing hair, straightening it, and assimilation. And it was also there at Tyler that I started working and using hair and lithography. So again, using another object or tool to create the image. And so in this series of prints, I would buy this store-bought hair. I would make an arrangement, a composition, and then I would translate that through photolithography. Okay. Last element of experimentation, another example, is another thing I tried doing then beyond print, and then of course in kind of sculpturally, was then working with synthetic hair. I would take synthetic hair, I heat that synthetic hair, make it into sheet, a two-dimensional sheet, and then cut it out and create more dimensional forms from that. So this piece is entitled, this is number 613, which is the number of the hair for platinum blonde. And I would create these honeycomb-like forms. Another aspect of the work that I think is really important characterizing the work is this performative quality. I've created a series of hair rugs and using hair clippings and using the mask or the stencil of cloth, a tablecloth, a hand-cut stencil. And so this is me here, and I am dusting these hair clippings over a tablecloth, and really at the time it was a tablecloth, and then I'm pulling it back, and those hair clippings shift through the stencil and create these patterns that would exist on the floor. Maybe you might think about this as I did as that floor of the barber shop. And I created several of these, some that are directly on the floor, some experimenting with different components added to the hair clippings. This is an exhibit that I had at the West End Gallery in Cincinnati, Ohio. This piece is like 7 by 10 feet. This is a piece which had a partnering piece, which is hair clippings on one pedestal, and on the other pedestal is sugar. So using the action of print, applying print's process, right? But the action, the performative action was just as important to me, not visible, but just as important to me and as a component of the work is creating it. I just reinstalled this piece this summer, and I thought someone took this picture of me, and I thought I would use it. But this is an earlier work, and it is entitled Love Affair, and this is me here installing this several hundred of these pins that are wrapped with this hair over the tip of a pearl tip pin and then lightly nailed into the wall. And so this continues to be very characteristic of my work in terms of process. It's using repetition, using replication of the same object, and then building and repeating to create form, right? Okay. So this final characteristic of the work is this influence that is both cultural, it's both gender related, it's identity related, and so this is a photo that I took from when I was living in Philly and I was in graduate school, and I first discovered using hair as a medium and finding this space and this place of hair supply stores as this huge breakthrough and inspiration for my use of material and material exploration. This is not just like an opportunity for me to find materials, but it was inspiration for color, for textures, and inspiration for content in the work. And so it's undeniable for me as a Black woman to not talk about the influence of hair in culture. And it's it's almost something that wouldn't be talked about because it's so ingrained. It's just part of a kind of a day-to-day understanding of oneself. But let me go on further, because this is one perspective from from a woman's perspective, and this relationship to hair as a material, and a relationship of beauty, and identity and appearance. But also then I became a mother, and these are some images of, I have two daughters, and as when I became a mother, I found this extension to my work happened through my care for my children. And hair braiding became this like weird kind of, I can't get in the studio, but I'm exploring here on their heads. And then that would just happen really quite naturally. So there's that aspect of it from that perspective as a mother, thinking about how that impacted me, but also realizing and thinking more about the role of both obligation and labor in that role as a mother, and also how this action of attention to appearance, attention to hair, attention to grooming also can influence and inform the perspective of young girls. A young girl who learns early on in life that she's expected to sit for 2 hours or more is being taught that the importance of her appearance is a priority, right? And then one that might even outweigh her comfort and her maybe even other life occupations, right? So thinking about what kind of influence that has served as me as instructor of that, or perpetuator of that, and how I've also been trained and learned that same type of perspective. That has led to a series of works that these lithographic works that are a combination of lithography and screen printed, combined, and collage. These are both, this piece is entitled Play, and they are both playful in action and also visually. The circular shapes in these prints are screen printed in thick layers of ink so that they are raised off the surface. They're printed and then cut out into shapes and then adhered onto the surface of lithographic prints, much like a sticker would be. So this piece is entitled More Please. Some of these have other surfaces as well, such as flocking. So always in parallel, I'm creating something that is sculptural. So at the same time that I was creating these prints, I'm working with these objects. I'm drawing from these objects, and I'm creating with these objects. And this represents one of the hats, the mini hats that I've made using these hair accessories. Barrettes, boggles, and they're intended to be heavy weighted and awkward to wear. They led to me creating a series of photographic work. This series is called Goody Girl. The space and presence above the head there is intended that there is this added amount of weight and visual space above the head of the figure represented here. The body is intended to communicate the weight of the headwear, the headdress that this little girl is wearing. Another one. The majority of these prints in this series are intended to be somewhat faceless. And it's really important to me that also I communicate properly the scale of in each portrait, the scale of the figure. There's another kind of looking for these awkward moments where it's not quite clear where the neck is or the face is, as in this one. But working in this way, I found was kind of like one way of me finding this visual execution, expression of an idea, but also more tangibly addressing my own interests and concerns of young girls. And so in these photo sessions that I would have with my models, I began asking, as an extension of the work, I began asking questions about probing questions to give me a sense of how they saw this, what they're wearing, how they saw them, how they see themselves, how this what they're wearing might make them feel. And so this has been a really important component and interest of mine as well, and one that I hope to eventually use in a future project. As an extension of this, I've had a few workshops. I offered a few workshops, which were this is a bookmaking workshop specific to young girls, and we talked about the author Audre Lorde, and again address these thoughts about self-identity and self-perception. So one of the first 3D printed pieces that I created is this one here. This piece is entitled Counter, and if new to the process and the software and 3D printing, I just started going to town and like finding, looking for objects that I felt like could represent an idea, and using the internet as a way of doing that, like internet as a way of filtering out kind of an association to an idea. So I might then, I would look for open source files, and I might type in just one particular type of word, right? Like beauty, or I might type in perfect and see what generated. And I would start using these objects that would generate to start to create this piece. This piece is laid on a white, very shiny gloss plexiglass. So it looks very clean and clinical, and I'm interested in that kind of sense of analysis. And we have a variety of different objects up here, from bullets and hair accessories and combs and flowers. And so and the satellite here, as you can see. So these different kind of combinations that I put together, which later took form in a new set of photographs. So these later then found home and place in this second set of, or continued portfolio of photographic prints. So this one is Pink Veil. This here, Blackbird Girl. Thing that was exciting in seeing this move from object and object symbolism into headwear and fashion, or wear something wearable, was also the use in thinking about this association of both the usable object, or the playful object, the toy, and then making these like direct correlations with this figure, this female figure. This piece is entitled Orbit. Okay, so back to print and bouncing around a little bit. Band-Aids entered my work around COVID. And again, I but also started to kind of enter the work was this like use of repetition and suggested pattern. And this print here is entitled First Date. It is also, it's printed with a dimensional ink that has a velvet-like finish to it. So you can see on the Band-Aids here, they have kind of a soft tone for the white part of the Band-Aid there. other recognizable objects. Is a series of this print. This is called Sharp. This is titled Sharp Things. This is screen printed as well. And in this work, I'm screen printing multiple layers. It's one of the earlier works I started working dimensionally like this throughout the entire composition, is building up layer by layer by layer dimension on the surface of the paper. Some other examples of that here. And doing so has like been this great combining, I guess, of like both thinking dimensionally, thinking in a way of like of the building structure, thinking much like we might think about 3D printing as well, working this layer and then raising from the surface this relief and this description. So screen printing here. Okay. This piece I'm going to just go on quickly here has led to this partnering project, large project I've been working over the last few years. This is a print that I made in advance of this project entitled In the Weeds, and it's a series of bobby pins that are layered and printed. They have some dimension, and they're built in a way that for me is a connection to or a reference to a landscape of some sort, a sod or a ground. From this print came this piece. This piece was first installed at the Land Contemporary. I was given this small experimental space to work in. And you can see here from the photo, that's this very narrow tapering space. So how to use it was a challenge. And I was really happy with the outcome. This piece is installed so that it angles and creates this suggested path on this surface here, made of a bed of both bobby pins, sewing needles, clips, and this very dense grass-like texture. It took several thousands of pieces 3D printed to create this piece, which is about like I don't know, 11 feet deep, right, or 10 feet in length, and about I guess roughly 30 to 36 inches in width. And so this was a big project for me to really invest in and investigate the use of the 3D printing. Those are some of those pins that I created that are individual or 3D printed, and you can see them installed here. They're all facing upward, so those points are going directly towards the sky. See some of the layout here in preparation. I was excited by this piece, and this piece was spotted by a curator in Paris who asked me to install this piece in Paris in the last summer. And I realized, like, this piece can't travel. Something important to think about for all of those that are making, right? It's like when the work is transportable and when it isn't. It kind of gives us some limits to how we can show it. And I realized I can't transport this piece. It's too fragile. It was glued simply to this base. I had to recreate it. And I spent that time in the summer recreating this piece a second time so that I could fit it all into a small box, right? This piece became more dense. It actually consists of a little bit more material and objects than the first time I installed it. And now I'm proud to say I've recreated this piece a third time. So most recently, I just had I have a show that's up currently that's at the Hunter Museum of American Art that's in Chattanooga, and Tennessee. And I recreated this piece a third time. I didn't say earlier, this piece is entitled False Ground. And now this piece is roughly about like 10 by it's like 10 by 11 feet, right, in size. And this piece is all of it consists of over 110 different plates. Each plate has required roughly about a 10 to 12 printing hour amount of time. And which in doing the math, that amount of hours, I realized totals about 55 days worth of printing, which is about accurate, right? So I've been working on this piece nonstop since September, about September, October. And I just want to share some images from this piece, my most recent work. You can see here there's a considerable more variety in terms of the object. And these are objects that are all taken from my studio. These are all the tools that are most familiar in my practice. We have screws, we have braiding, beading needles, we have the bobby pins, we have scissors, we have even a nod to printmaking there. We have the palette knife, ink scraper, or paint scraper, whatever you call it, that is represented here. And integrated throughout here are scanned images of my hand. I wanted to share just because I enjoy sharing images of process. All these objects are held together by pegs and a plate, which then fit into the base that they can just come apart. Some are printed and integrated into the plate, several are. And then there's this series of blocks that are I tend to think of as sod-like squares. And they're printed with both the base and a top component. And then I cut that top component off. And as you can see, then what is left is this loose filament that is very textured and resembles in some ways kind of somewhere in between hair, a brush, and grass. It's created an immense amount of waste, which has just blown my mind. This is just like one photo of several boxes that are just waste from working on this project. And here's some other process shots from the printer. These repeat images of scissors, there are calipers. Again, these are tools for my studio, things that I use most frequently. Push pin and tack, they're all incorporated and added into this composition. Across from this piece at the Hunter currently is this piece that you can see on the wall. And this is my last piece that I'm going to share with you today. And you can see on this wall is another 3D printed piece. And this is an expanded continuation of the work of this display rack. This display rack is now adorned in both bows, but also parts, mannequin parts, body parts as well as other forms of commodity. The hands, several of which those are my own scanned in hands. Another, I love these images it's like images from the press when they're in the printer. I love this, how they look so different. And bows, of course, bows. I'm going to finish with just with this image here. As I was mentioning earlier, throughout this work, this simulation or this representation of my own body, or the suggestion of a body as well incorporated in all of this work. And I began in this project. Don't mind the stuff in the background there. I know that's a little awkward. It's funny. I don't even see it because but it's really, I am taking, this is a picture of my own hand. And I first started just using a scanner and scanning this in. And since in the course of this project, I started using using AI 3D image generating, and it just blew my mind at what is possible. And it's not that great yet, but it's faster and better, and in some regards than even the scanner is in some regards. So it blew my mind that I was able to take this picture and then and generate from that this image, right? And so this has been kind of just a whole new avenue for me to consider and to think about. And I'm left with thinking about this space, this virtual space, the space of the X, Y, and Z axis as this endless potential in the same way that I think about this medium of print. And I'm excited to think of and to continue to play with this as both metaphor in my work and practice, and to extend the possibilities of my own, of my future sculptural 3D work. So thank you. So possibly there's questions. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I was just curious about what you are working on here at the residency. I saw you already had some things laid out, and just, yeah, curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been, oh, Craig, thank you so much. I meant to say thank you. I don't see you, but I know you're there. I have been working with both Greg and Miles to work on a print that is both screen printed and collaged. So using sublimation and the satin-like fabric, I'm using the satin fabric to create this great sheen, this luster on the print, and using that as collage element in combination with screen printing. I am currently it's a composition that forms relationship with some of the earlier prints that I showed of those ribbons. It's just such a great connection to make in terms of material and image. It's just hard to pass up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, earlier.
Your use of symbolism is abundant and brilliant, but I'm curious, do you feel you're creating a distance for the viewer, or do you enjoy the idea that one would explore with their own experiences? And like, how do you approach that? Because it's such a different experience as a viewer than the creator.
Mm-hmm. I want to make sure I want to make sure I'm hearing your question. You're wondering about the difference between the viewer's perspective and interpretation of the work and my own?
Yeah, and how you feel your use of symbolism kind of intertwines between those two.
Yeah. Symbolism doesn't always translate the same way for everyone, right? And that is something you can't control. There's some things that are more, we might just say, generally mainstream, in which we all share a certain place and time or experience to see those connections, right? And to make that connection. but that's not always the case, and especially in art creating, it isn't always the case. I do think, though, that we all have our own opinions and we all have our own interpretations, and so it's up to us to see and to respond and to determine if that's something that we find relevance in or interest in, or not, right? And I know that I know that for me, that's like, that varies, right? It depends on what you see, you understand it in a different way than maybe a different audience does. But I could see another question connected to yours, and that is a challenging one, is to consider the disconnect that might exist when we're talking about different experiences that fill bigger gaps, which might be those that are related to identity and experience, or religion, and like these other kind of bigger divides, right? And that's always tough to navigate. I think that's really the challenge of the creator. That's the challenge of the artist, is like how much do I choose to share? How much do I want to share? How much do I want to explain? And so, yeah, I think that's a real challenge. I think honesty is key. Being genuine, authentic, and honest is really key for any audience member to find connection and your content, your interest, ideas, and other inspirations.
May I ask
Yeah.
another question? Where do you feel you fall in that concept of greater divides? Do you feel you're in that conversation, or do you like to separate yourself from whether it's religion or whatever?
Oh, it varies. It ebbs and flows. I think I'm very invested in that. I'm responding from a place that is very much so. I'm very inspired by looking at social interactions, about thinking about my own relationship to the world, my own understanding of who I am in society, or through my own experiences, responding to my own experiences in my work. It's kind of inescapable, right? Symbolism is its own narrative, right? And we all have our own narratives, right? That's inescapable. So I think whether or not where I choose to verbalize and express that more directly or not is, um, there are I'm not doing nearly as much as some might other do with the goal of activism or the goal of, right? Mine is very much comes from a kind of personal examination, of personal exploration, but it kind of varies, and the choice to talk and where to engage in that.
Hi, we have a question from the Zoom chat from Zoe. Zoe says, "Hi, Althea. With the 3D printed elements of your work, do you repurpose the waste?"
Oh, can you repeat the last part of that? Do you purposely what?
Repurpose the waste?
Oh, recycle the waste? I'm trying to figure out how to do that. I'm actually currently looking for some resource to recycle all of the waste that I have just from this recent project, to see if I can have it made into new reels of filament. Yeah, environmental interest, definitely. Also, like any artist, it's like we invest in our work, man. I don't want to lose them. Like, I want to reuse where I can, right? Because I want to keep creating. I don't want to lose that investment too. So I am currently looking at that. There's not in the 3D printing though. It's difficult. I have not reused the waste yet. So no, I have not figured out a resource for that. And currently I save. I just save the waste.
Hello.
Hi.
I I was wondering with you were talking about your piece False Crown being like very hard to transport or like disassemble and reassemble. And I'm also thinking about your hair rug and
Mhm.
like how delicate that seems as like something to try to transport. Do you find yourself assembling a lot of these pieces in the gallery space that you are going to display them in? And
Yeah.
also kind of along with that, do you find the like fragility and kind of like I guess ephemeral quality of it to be intentional or simply a product of what you're trying to do?
Mhm. No, that's a great question. Uh, uh, yes, yes to both questions. The dimensional pieces, of course, they exist and function on their own as object, and so installing them is not doesn't require me to be there. But the work like such as like this work, yeah, I haven't installed all of them myself. Okay, so which is wonderful about the medium of print, right? Like can be replicated. So I've exhibited some of these pieces, the same piece in different places at the same time. So because they're installed by someone else. But the fragility is significant. These pieces are they're just hair clippings, not affixed to the surface, and so they are fragile and they are they are affected by those around them, right? So they so yeah, that was really important to the work, right? Um, that they're both like decorative and temporary, um, and um, and also responsive, and in some ways kept record of like of the bodies and the movement and the pinch of air in the space.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's okay. Take your time.
Okay. Hi. I was really into your like notion of honesty, and I was wondering if you could go into like your relationship with synthetic materials and
Yeah.
how that collaborates with like the analog print process in the body, and how like screen printing requires a lot of physical motion, but how that translates into scanning your body and printing it in plastic. How do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. I think a lot about this like authentic. There's this conversation of like the authenticity of the print, right? Like the how truthful is it, right? Um, and I think about that a lot. I think about it in the use of material, as I have for some time now thought intentionally about the significance of plastic as a role of like the synthetic and the fabricated, right? And it's like symbolic of that. Um, and um, and then also in in the nature of print, you have uh, the copy or the double that happens in the printing process, which is kind of this conversation of this like relationship of how it's printed and kind of what's the more I guess the intended execution of the work, right? In Olive, in a number of, I'll say some of, in a number of my printed works, particularly in lithography, what was happening in that work was I would have both the object as this artifact, and much like we think about the plate, but as this object, and then that object translated and copied into and kind of um, and frozen into the paper, right, in some sort of way, right, where they are both replicated and represent both the dimension then like and the two-dimensional. So yeah, like I don't know. I think there's like that's like I think it some of that expression feels so relevant in the making of it. It's not something that it's like it's hard to share it in the work itself, but feels like to the maker is like something that feels very present. Um, and I would say the same thing goes for when I think about that material use, right? When I think about the use of like synthetic hair, for instance, it's like I think about ownership and I think about who owns it and who it belongs to, as like body and commodity, as commercial object, like as material. It's all of those things. Yeah.
All right. Do we have any more questions from the chat? All right.
So with the hair clippings one, is the like where you get the hair clippings from significant?
Oh, that's a good question. I did not clarify that. Thanks. You guys are giving good questions. The hair clippings, most of the hair clip, well, not entirely true. Some of the hair clippings is like human hair, but almost all the material was synthetic. So synthetic hair clippings. And it's I had people tell me like, oh, that's not as effective. But to me, that's exactly what it's about. Was like it's a stand-in for the real thing, right? Like that's the purpose of these like accessories, is things that we wear and we identify they're wearable and interchangeable. They're wearable and interchangeable identities, right? Like they are stand-ins for the real thing, or they are, like so it questions for me, it's kind of like it creates the question of what is the real thing, right? But also both the acknowledgement of the role that it's playing. And so, yeah, but the hair clippings, store-bought raw material. And then I would clip them and hand clip them.
One more question.
Mhm.
Do you ever think of making interactive work?
Oh, I am bold and daring in experimentation when it comes to materials. But not so much in not so much in other, like in audience participation. And I don't always trust my own self in terms of like the interactive part as well, like in process. I don't always consider myself the best printmaker. So I know I don't. Have I? Yes, of course. But no, I don't. I don't think about it as something that's coming. Yeah. Other than like conversation and reporting, researching, documenting, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. I see you. I see you.
Yeah, keep them coming. Thank you guys.
Hi.
Great
So
questions.
I was wondering if the pieces where you have like your really large pieces with all the different like sharp objects, I was wondering if you reused those for the other installations or if each piece has its own like individual pieces for it.
Just realized I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Is there like a vibe, like, I don't know for the audience members that are online, can they hear, or is there like is the sound an issue? Okay, I thought maybe a sound issue. I'm sorry. I got really distracted just now. Can you tell me again, you were talking about the pieces, the sharp object pieces?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Forgive me.
So I was wondering if, since you have like the 3 installations of it, did you reuse ones from like the original for the other 2, or is each one have all of its own individual pieces for it?
I intended to reuse the original, but ended up you know, you've got to make the work what it needs to be, right? And that's like sometimes the shortcuts just don't work. So yeah, so I intended to use and reuse, which makes sense. Um, I to some degree, yes. To some degree, yes, I was able to use some of the materials again. But you know, and recreating this piece to how the one that I'm currently exhibiting right now, the scale changed, the size of everything like shifted just in some slight way that required I needed new material, like I needed new objects. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Um, why was the shift to objects that you find in real life, like the hair ball things? What was the transition to that kind of sculpture to the 3D printing sculpture that you did, and why?
Right. Why? Well, the why is an interest in the control part of is having some agency and control. But let me back up because the hair accessories that I was using to create the wearable hats are all I was collecting these things and buying them and printing from them and drawing from them and all this stuff. And I realized one connection and material and all of the work is this plastic. And so acknowledging like I had all this very cheap cheap like molded plastic forms, right? In the form of the barrettes, in the form of the like hair ties and that sort of thing. It was just kind of um a, a a quick sidestep to the left and the right to see that connection. I was like, okay, maybe 3D printing could be a way of both working with this in the same material conversation, but then giving me some more agency and control over how I execute and what I create and making it, as opposed to all this other stuff I was using found object, right? Like how could I gain ownership over that? Or how can I alter it and distort it or make it something new? Truthfully, I don't think I haven't made much stuff new. In fact, it became like more like responding to the same objects around and then fabricating them to see them in another material. But I do but that's where the response is coming from. It's like this gives me more this is another way of exploring control. And then also, it's printmaking. I see the two as one, just as one and the same. And it's hard not to acknowledge that is one of the directions print media has gone, right? And stereolithography in a lot of ways is really not that new, right? So it was like a light bulb, like, oh, yeah, I can go forward to print, but now print in dimension. And so using 3D printing. So yeah, I see them as like the same I see them as connected, same media.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I always find working with any sort of machine, even something really basic like a sewing machine. I do a lot of textiles, but there's always the degree of detachment and lack of control over things sometimes. And I'm curious, how you feel about that and how you reconcile with that as an artist. And I guess sometimes the aspect of not kind of getting your hands dirty, so to speak. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question. That's really on my mind a lot right now because I've come to think about it as like it's so true, working with different equipment, working with different from like physical equipment to software, it all speaks in these like different languages, and you're trying to somehow become this like multilingual person in terms of like not just how you navigate them and speak through the, like access the material in the process, but it's also then like how you think. So you can think like the machine, like the sewing machine does, right? Um, and it's so tough. And I hate the disconnection. I do. Now I have just spent since October printing, 3D printing, and I am like, need a break. I need a break. And so I do think like the having the distance will be helpful in this regard. But I've come to think about it as a collaboration. In fact, trying to train myself in some ways to say like that work is made in collaboration with 3D printing in a way, because there is it's my pursuit, as was asked in the earlier question, and my response was like, I'm seeking control. I'm seeking like choice and like imagery and surface and object. But there's that's an illusion, right? There's no all over control. I'm thinking about that as a form of collaboration. That's the best answer I can give you right now. But definitely there is a disconnect, and maybe that's a disconnect to me because I acknowledge another more physical interaction with my work. I don't think everyone would have that same kind of disconnect that I feel. These are great.
All right. I see someone.
Pressure's on.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk. I was sent Christopher McNulty a text that you were here. He's a good friend of mine. But when you had the image, and maybe this is too abstract, and I can talk about it, I'll come visit you in the studio. But when you're showing the image of your arm, then you were talking about the X, Y, and the other axis.
Yeah.
Right? Something popped into my mind that the poet laureate Natasha Trethewey. Are you familiar a little bit with her work at all?
I'm not sure.
Okay. She wrote about the miracle of the black leg, and I started thinking about these embodied or these objects in your studio as like extensions of the body, but also perhaps representations of the body, and how the black body kind of appears and disappears in a way, and thinking about how that translates to the print matrices. And when, I don't know, there's just some things I was just thinking about, and like when the body becomes printable, and therefore it's and I don't know what the question is. I was just thinking about like hearing her talk as it relates like to like Bethany Collins prints, for instance. And sort of it's not necessarily an erasure of the body in your work. It's a perhaps a celebration or a notation or a something. I don't know. It's just like your work is beautiful. It's and poetic, and like there's this amazing precision. And when I see the sort of the detritus in your studio of like the leftover, I don't really think about like recycling it into like how to make more wire or whatever, right? But like in and of itself, it's sort of like this collection of hair. It's like other sort of thrown away parts that are then, I don't know.
Discarded.
discarded.
Yeah.
Like there was such a beautiful image of them sort of in the boxes, like
Or unseen. Yeah.
yeah, sort
I'm
of
so
like
glad that you asked that question. Thank you for asking that question. It's really, I see it as like really insightful. I had someone ask me a long time ago, have you considered like visualizing and representing the human body in your work, right? And or like why isn't you're talking about hair, like why isn't there more? And her thought was like, it's always that body's always been there. The body is there, but I'm thinking about how the body what can represent the body or has been the stand-in and been acknowledged maybe over the body or over an acknowledgement of the body. So you saying or acknowledging this like kind of invisible presence is like very like it's wonderful to hear that because I have been really interested in how like I'm always thinking about that body and I'm always thinking about and I say the body just to like symbolize this like both the identity, the body as the object, the body as tool and consumer. And so it's a role that one might serve. It's a role also of representing oneself, right? A role of representing oneself as a representative, generalized as a representative of that race or of that gender. And so I am always thinking about that role because I feel it. I feel it. But like through experiences, it's manifests itself in through these other things that have been connected to that experience or connected to that body.
well, the poem will be delivered to you in the print shop tomorrow. So
what? Oh,
I'll bring you the Natasha's poem.
Oh yes, wonderful. Okay,
tomorrow.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you for the question.
All right, exciting plans. Last question for the night.
Hey, thank you so much for the talk. Just a quick question. Is there a relationship do you see in your work between the multiples and the mass produced in terms of the multiple in printmaking and the work that you make compared to mass production of objects and 3D printing and consumeristic
Yeah.
objects that become maybe culture itself?
Yeah.
No.
That's the aspect of the 3D printing that I feel where I feel like that is the language I need to work in to form that connection, right? This is part of why I show you, in part because I'm enticed by the objects when they come out of the printer and they come out of the printer with their supports and they come out of their printer with their kind of order and like I'm like impressed by the work and the craftsmanship. I'm impressed by like the kind of efficiency and that sort of thing. But it's that multiplicity, that like potential of that multiplicity, and that relationship to to this industry of fabrication that it feels like that is like it's a great medium for me to form those relationships to or to speak in that language of. So yeah, I do. And I've always used copies of the same thing over and over and over again in all of my work. I was joking at myself in the studio now as we've been working last few days. I'm like, yeah, we could just make a bunch of those bows because it's like the same thing. I'm gonna like accumulate with a lot of the same thing, but I find that I'm trying to trust that instinct because I think it comes from that place and trying to like follow that intuition and yeah, and like yeah, utilize it because it's a tool too, right? Hope that answers your question. Last question? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you guys. Oh, yeah. Thank
On behalf of Alfred, I just want to thank Althea again for her wonderful presentation tonight and for sharing her time with all of us. And you can find Althea at altheamurphyprice.com on our website or on Instagram at Althea Murphy-Price. And this recorded talk will be available on the IEA's YouTube channel by the end of the week. For our online viewers, now is the time to turn on your cameras and give a wave. And also a big thank you to everyone that showed up today in person. Thank you to the Tex and to Miles and to Brig. You all have a wonderful rest of your week and stay safe.